Dave Ramsey will not make you wealthy. A lot of people follow him. He's a guru. He does know what he's talking about when it comes to reducing debt, but he will never get you to a place of total financial freedom. I'm really excited to show you a better way that can take you from just basic economics and understanding how to get out of debt to a place of actually growing your wealth and reaching total financial freedom. And we're going to do it in 3 easy steps. All right, so step number 1, Dave Ramsey is great for the masses. Maybe you've gotten stuff out of Dave Ramsey, his principles, his books. He's kind of everywhere. If you're into financial guru stuff, he's part of religious organizations. He goes all over talking about telling people how you need to get out of debt. Now, I would say in general, a lot of people love him. He's great for the masses. Maybe you've gotten some stuff out of him. And I would think for most people, he's absolutely great because most people are in way too much credit card debt. They spend more than they earn. And, basically most people, we as a nation, we spend way more than we take in. And so what I call all this is really 101, right? When you back in high school, you took English 101 or Spanish 101. It was the very basics, and that's what Dave really teaches. And we're going to talk about some of his principles, talk about some of the things he talks about, getting rid of credit card debt, which I agree with, getting rid of debt. The problem, though, with Dave Ramsey, and I want to talk about the problem because there's a problem here. He can get you to a very basic level, but he can't get you to a place of real financial freedom. The problem is that if you really want to grow your wealth, if you want to become very wealthy, you can't use these same principles that got you to a baseline to get where you really want to go. Now, what I want to say is I am not an investment advisor. I'm not your investment advisor. This is just opinions. This is educational. But I'm going to talk through real quick. My background is in the medical field. So I did a lot of work in the medical field. You'd give a prescription to a patient that had a certain diagnosis. For example, if somebody came in to the ER and they had all kinds of symptoms and there was some sort of emergent issue, you had to take them immediately to go to surgery, right? There was a certain diagnosis for somebody that came in with very urgent, maybe they had, life-threatening pain or they had, blood everywhere, things like that. And you realize that this is actually a very, very urgent case. Vice versa, if somebody comes in and they have a splinter in their finger, you're going to do something very different than you did with that first person. That's why it's really important to know who I'm talking with on the other end here. And for you, if you're on this video, you're probably saying, I've gotten some help from Dave Ramsey. I'm looking for financial help, but I'm really looking to get to the next level. So again, there's a different prescription for each person based on where you're at. Now, Dave has these baby steps. And again, I love rules. I love systems. I love things, people love it too. They love certain things. Hey, I'm going to give you these 7 steps of things you can do. And Dave has these baby steps that you do. I've written them up here. Save $1,000, get it in your emergency fund, pay off all your debt besides your house, 3 to 6 months saved, invest 15% in your retirement, work on your kids' college fund, pay off your house, build wealth, and give. So I've summed it up basically in 4 things. You've got save, pay off your debt, invest, and give. Now, these are all good things, okay? These are all not bad things, especially for the masses, for the majority of people. But again, I'm going to say to you, these things are 101. So if you're not doing these things, if you're not moving toward these things, some of these things, actually, I will say a few of them I just completely disagree with because I think that it's actually not good to pay your house off early in a lot of cases. And so we're going to get into that, and we're going to just talk, again, different advice for different people. So for you, if you're someone who, you just got out of jail and you are not quite sure what you want to do for job advice, what am I going to do? Well, I would give you advice that's like you probably need to find a good living environment. You probably need to go find if it's Burger King or work somewhere that's going to be good for you. But if you're someone who's very high aptitude, you did well in school, you're very smart, maybe we'd say, hey, go become a doctor, go become an attorney, go start a business. And so the advice depends on where you're at. So again, for a lot of people, I think though Dave Ramsey is a good baseline, but it will never get you to a place of financial freedom. So we're going to talk a little bit about some problems of some of these, and then we're going to get into the advanced strategies. So go ahead and smash the like button on this video. It helps other people to see this and get the word out, and it also helps us to provide new content for you. All right, step number 2, we're going to get into why Dave Ramsey is 101, why he's very basic for most people. So years ago, when Galileo came along and said the earth was round, the common opinion was that the earth was flat, and he was really condemned for his opinion. So the stuff that I'm sharing, it may seem like I'm I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just going through point by point saying there's certain things that don't necessarily measure up when it comes to actually building wealth. So what I want you to do, whether you're looking at stuff that I'm presenting or stuff that Dave Ramsey or anybody else is presenting, remember that it's a buffet table, right? So you can pick and choose what helps you. If it doesn't help you, then don't use it. So first thing he says is baby steps. He's got these 7 baby steps. And again, baby steps are great, or steps are great because they help people to know what to do. But again, $1,000, the first step, save $1,000. 101, I'm assuming that you've already done that, or if you haven't, you're on your way to that. Most people that watch videos like this have saved some money. Step number 2 is to pay off debt. And so this one, I would say really it depends on the interest rate. So if you have credit card debt, you have high interest, again, that's 101, you need to pay that off. If it's low interest rates, it's actually sometimes good to take on other debt. We take on tons of debt to buy large multifamily buildings. We take on tens of millions of dollars of debt to go do these big projects because we know that having debt at a low rate for a long term is actually a very positive thing. So for example of this, I had somebody approach me a bank approached me with $100,000, what's called a personal line of credit, saying we're going to give you $100,000 at 2.75%, and we're going to fix it for 10 years. So to me, I know I can take that money, the 100K, I can invest it and get about a 15% return with a pretty high degree of confidence. It's going to be at least a 10% and maybe a 20% or higher, but it's much higher than the 2.75% that I'm getting. And so we'll talk about that in advanced strategies next on ways you can use debt to be able to invest. Step number 3 is 3 to 6 months savings. I'm assuming 101, you've done this, you're on your way to that. Step number 4 is 15% retirement. And I would say on this, the bigger thing is not just necessarily how much you're putting into retirement or the percentages, it's just what are you actually buying. If you're buying stocks and bonds, I would say be really concerned. As I mentioned in other videos, I used to be an investment advisor, and I realized these products don't necessarily serve people and they can crash. They call them traditional, but when something can go down 50% in 12 months, and it's happened multiple times over the last 50 to 100 years, it is not a safe traditional investment. So if you're interested in finding out ways to 17x your retirement returns, sounds a little too good to be true, you can check out the math. Check out this video up here, and a very compelling story on how you can greatly increase your investment or retirement returns. Okay, step number 5, Ramsey says, is to save money for college. Now this one I actually really disagree with, not in the fact of saving money for college. I have a daughter, she's 8 years old, but I don't specifically put money into investment or an account or things like that. What I do is I buy assets, and I know these assets produce cash flow and they appreciate, so over time they will be worth more, and I will have more money available to be able to pay for things like college and for other things. So instead of what Dave Ramsey calls a snowball in debt, reducing debt in that way, which is good, you should reduce debt, but really you want a passive income snowball. You want to be rolling this thing that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Before you know it, eventually you have more than enough passive income to pay for college, pay for all different types of things that you want, and that's really a different approach. So number 6 is to pay your home off early. This one I actually really disagree with. I don't think paying your home off early, again, maybe for some people that have very little sophistication, that aren't interested in learning more about investing, then maybe that's okay. But what I would say is if you have a low interest rate, like I mentioned, the personal line of credit, you can potentially find other investments to be able to invest in. So imagine you have $200,000 left on your mortgage and you decide to go pay it off. Well, it's basically like you're getting a 3% return or whatever your mortgage rate was. You're basically getting that type of return going forward. But if you knew you could get a higher return, something alternative assets, something in the 10, 15, 20% range per year, you would be doing much better to just pay the minimum payment and invest on the side. Again, I'm not saying what you should do in your personal situation, but it could be a much better option. So you can check out this video here that talks about that specific thing about why you should not pay your house off and why you should consider investing instead with the money. Number 7, this is his last step. It says, build wealth and give. Now this one, to be honest, I really agree with. I agree that you should build wealth, you should give, and really more, for me personally, more than financial stuff and money and things and all this, really, what is the reason you want to become financially free? I think that is a bigger and more important question, and really it comes down to your why. Is it because you want to be a better parent? Is it because you want to write that book? You want to make an impact in the world? I want to share this video with you that talks about my why, and it will also help you discover your why for financial freedom. All right, so this is the advanced wealth strategy. This is step number 3. I'm really excited to share this with you. So a few things you need to know is that there are some prerequisites to basically be able to do this. So a few prerequisites that we have, we talked about 101. First of all, you need to use your strategery in the words of my friend George W. Bush.
Strategery.
Use your strategy. You have to have a strategy about how you're going to do this, and there is a prerequisite to kind of get this to be able to operate on the way that you like to do it. So the first thing is you have to understand what an asset and a liability is. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket every month, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket each month. A house that you live in, it actually is a liability because it takes money out of your pocket each month. If you haven't checked out this guy in this book, Robert Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That is required reading. So you must read that to understand assets and liabilities and some of this stuff. You do want to pay off any credit card debt that you have or other high interest rate debt. Very, very important. And then you really need to shift from spending and looking at more expenses and other things to really focus on saving and investing, living within your means. Now, if your income equals your expenses, you are not getting wealthier. In fact, I would say you are getting poorer. So what happened is a lot of people, they start making more money and their expenses go up. They make more money, their expenses go up. And there are people that are really miserable as you start spending more money than you're making. But I would say if this is an equal equation, you're actually getting poorer because of inflation and because your time is really valuable. You're not going to be able to work forever. So if you're just breaking even, that's something you're going to have to, how are you going to be able to retire, to be able to do things down the road to have more income. So growing your income, reducing your expenses, there's two sides of that equation. That's really important to understand that. And then the whole goal of all this is financial freedom, that you don't have to go work for a job. You don't have to work for a paycheck. You have passive income, other sorts of sources where it comes in for you, and you can do what you want with your time. If you're interested to see how I did that, how I quit my great corporate job and retired with passive income, you can check out this video up here. It's a great kind of story of how that equation actually works. So we're going to talk real quick. This is the advanced wealth strategy. Step number 1 for this is to find investments that return 15% per year. Now, for some people, they say that and they're like, oh my gosh, 15%, like, how in the world do I do that, Bronson? That sounds impossible. And I felt the same way. I really felt the same way. Like people would talk about high returns. Like, I'm not Warren Buffett. How do I get those kind of returns? Well, how you get those type of returns is you learn and you network and you find different ways. So we do multifamily investing. I found multifamily, we do phenomenally well in multifamily investing. We find some investments do better, some don't do quite as well, but when you average it out, we tend to do at least 15% per year. I'm not giving endorsement to any specific investment. I'm just saying to look into multifamily investing would be helpful. If you're interested in how multifamily investing works and how to find multifamily deals that look great, check out this video up here. I think you're going to like that. And then really the goal is every 5 to 7 years, you're trying to double the money that you have. And so if you're getting 15% returns right here, you're doubling every 5 to 7 years. Now, Einstein has been credited with saying that compounding interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Now, whether that's true or not, but he said that. I think it's more compelling if he said it because he did some amazing stuff. But if you look at these numbers, it really is compelling. You'll see this chart, 100,000 becomes 813,000. That's an 800% increase over 15 years. And then over 30 years, starting with 100,000 with no additional contributions, that 100,000 with a 15% return becomes 6.6 million. 66 times what was started with. So this compounding interest, you can see the chart, it just picks up and up and up. And that's what you're going for. That's why a lot of people that are very, very wealthy, they started a long time ago. And there's a saying that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But the second best time is today. So you start today, you find investments, you start making and doing the actions that are going to get you where you want to go. Step number 2, or the other way to do it, is to use low interest rate debt to invest in other types of investments. Now, I'm giving a disclaimer here. I'm saying this is educational. I'm not telling you you should do this. I'm telling you what I've done, and these are things to consider. So there are some risks involved in doing this, right? If you have short-term debt, if you have variable rate debt, which means it changes based on the market, the best way to do this is to have long-term fixed debt and be able to invest on a shorter horizon. I gave an example, right? My personal line of credit, talking about $100,000, and I was able to get it at 2.75% fixed for 10 years, and I'm able to invest that to be able to do other much higher return things with it as well. Another thing people do is they have a mortgage on their house, they can have a home equity line of credit, they can find other ways to be able to use money, or instead of paying down, they can use that money to do other things, and they can take it and invest it. If you're interested in what are some other things you can invest in today's market, check out this panel I did where we talked about comparing real estate, precious metals, and other assets. Check that out up here. And what I would say is you want to look at inflation protection. I talk a lot about inflation because it's actually, I believe, much higher than what they're saying it actually is. So, things with fixed rate as an investment, if you have an annuity or other things, those things are not actually inflation protected. So it's really important that you're in assets that offer inflation protection. Now, I would say don't go and buy a bunch of crypto or Bitcoin with this or other speculative investments, okay? So again, those are two things you can do that will really help you in developing your wealth. So if you made it this far, please subscribe to this video. It'll allow us to get you the newest content as soon as it's available. And then secondly, I want to hear from you what it is you want me to talk about. We've talked a lot about inflation, money printing in the government, what you should do to become financially free, and really leaving your job through passive income. So if any of those topics are something that's interesting to you, please stick it in the comments, and I may end up doing the next video about what you put in there. So thanks for taking the time to educate yourself, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.